Well, welcome back to Along the Road. I'm Pastor Josh here in New Hampshire.
And I'm Katie, the Children's Discipleship Director.
And we're just excited to be with you as we're kicking off season 4. This is our 3rd episode. And we started talking about the idea of what service is in a church, that service and worship tend to be combined a lot in the scriptures as well. And so we were going to talk about more details. Last week it was kind of like a big, broad, what is service? What does it mean? And so this week we're going to break it down to what does that look like inside the church?
Be practical.
Yeah, be practical. So what does this look like inside the church? And not just, sometimes people think service and they just think of community service, doing things outside the community. Mm-hmm. But we'll probably do that next week. So this week we'll look a little bit more about what's inside the church and who we are, what we can do, and how, well, we'll see that some of that's changed over time. But the idea of we are a community, first a body together, as Paul talks about us being a body, and what that works out and looks like. One of the things that I was reading this week actually reminds us what Peter says, and I found that interesting. It reminds us that Peter calls us a royal priesthood. And you have to remember the priest in the Old Testament covenant, those were the ones that you brought your sins before. They served the Israelite community by allowing them to come and be right before God.
Well, and yes, and they lit the candles and they made the sacrifices
and yeah, so there was a service that they were doing to the community. So you have to remember, if we're a royal priesthood, we are that to each other. We help each other with spiritual needs. We help each other in different areas. But it also means that in the church, the idea of spiritual help or theological help or being a part of something is not left to, quote, the professionals. And depending on the size of your church, sometimes that's, we're at a church plant, everyone does things, or, we're at a larger church and we tend to leave that over to the professionals. A staff member does this, or we have somebody who does youth ministry, or we have somebody who does these things, not recognizing that especially in our American system, we may have people that are able to oversee that, and it's their job, but that doesn't mean that they're alone. They don't need your help. There are ways to get involved in that.
Right, and I think your operative word there was oversee.
Yeah.
That, yes, we pay people to oversee certain things, but we don't pay them to do every jot and tittle.
Right, we don't. And so we want to find that blend here, depending on the size of your church and where you recognize that. Yeah, we have people on staff. Maybe it's a pastor and just an associate. Maybe it's just 2 people. Maybe it's 4 people. And they have that job that they are doing, but you can't leave them alone. And you'll find, especially the larger church gets, the more people fall into that comfort of, well, I'm just here. We have staff for that. We have staff for this. When really church is meant that we are doing this together. We kind of bring this union of being priests to each other and being servants to each other. You see God doing that, Jesus doing that when he's on earth, and he's serving his disciples. He's working with them, and he's teaching them, and he's the priest to them. And so that's the idea of what we're looking at in Peter, who was a disciple of Christ, who had his feet washed by Christ, who also didn't want to have to be humble, but then Christ said, look, I'm humble. So this idea, but serving and loving each other is what matters. And if you remember in John, at the end of John, where Christ prays for his disciples, his biggest prayer is that they would learn to love each other. To love as God has loved the Son. They become one. The Son says, I love you, but you need to learn to love, minister to, help, and be with each other. And so you can see, I think, how we interact as a body on the inside is just as, if not more important, to what we do in the community. That doesn't mean you don't do anything in the community. It doesn't mean, and that's always the balance. People say the balance between discipleship and missions, or evangelism and discipleship, and we always talk about, well, if you lean on one, you're going to be weak on the other. If you're over here, and that can be true, but I think too, and we work on this here, the idea that discipleship is evangelism, and evangelism is they are part of each other, and they have to be. And I think a church will go through seasons, if you're wary of it, where you're going to lean a little more over here and then a little more over there. You come back to this area. If you have a lot of young believers, well, that's great. You're doing a lot of evangelism, but they have to grow. So we've got to lean over at discipleship. And if you have a lot of discipleship but no young believers, I don't mean young people, young believers, then you have to do something to transition over there and go back and forth. And so I think they go hand in hand. So serving in the church is very important because we look and see the needs around us. And then I found a list, and I know you're looking through it, and some of it's very old. But you can Google these. So I'm not going to put a link for this one on there. You can Google these, and it says it doesn't matter if you're young or old, busy or poor, whatever. Every stage of life, and I really do believe every stage of life, the church needs you. The local church, the church nationwide, worldwide needs you, but the local church, wherever you meet regularly, that's part of what they need. Being there to worship regularly. That is I think a very important part, especially post-COVID. Of gathering together and worshiping. Online services are great. I think they reach a great community. They really helped a lot of churches during COVID, and they help people who struggle to get out, cannot be consistent due to work and other things. There's a value there. But I'll tell you, at any generation, anyone who comes to church after being online for a while, they'll always say, I really enjoy that I could be online, that it's always there when I need it, but it's something different about being there.
It really is.
And so, God has created us for community and to be in this place. And so when we come in person, we worship together. That's your first act of service to each other, is that we lift hands to God together. We pray together, and we come into this place and say, I'm a broken sinner, rescued or redeemed by Christ, and so are you. And that's our first act, that we are vulnerable in that sense. But then it's also what we do when we're together and having the services.
So what makes a community?
Yeah. But I think the community makes is how we look out for each other. Online community is one thing. And I think as we continue much more into this digital generations, online community will have things. But you will see even people who have been very much inundated in an online world, there's still a great sense of loneliness, a great sense of depression, of being separated, but you have an entire online community. And online communities can often be just a place where you're just hearing, or you join a community that's all okay with who you are, okay with what you believe, and it's just this area where you never have a challenge. Where we gather in community in a church, and not everyone agrees 100% with everything. We open God's Word, and God's Word convicts us because we're off about something, or maybe it didn't convict me, but it convicted you, and I'm not even doing that intentionally. And so we come to a place where we do not agree 100%. We have different hobbies and talents. For an online community, I might join people that are all in the same hobby, and those are my people, but you're all kind of honed into this narrow place where God in His church has built this beautiful mosaic of people from all these different places.
And He created us for community.
Yes, absolutely.
And not just, the problem with online community is it can be orchestrated so that it's not real life in a sense.
In sense, yeah.
And that's what you get when you actually meet with people.
Right.
And then they challenge you and you challenge them, and because we're a body, and when we're missing part of the body, I mean, you think, well, so a big toe doesn't do a whole lot, but it does for balance.
It does, and you need all of that. I think that's part of the thing when we. I think in online communities, someone may disagree, but it's a lot easier to disagree at a much higher rate of hurting someone's feelings or doing things because you're not face to face. We're here now. We're talking about our relationship, and it doesn't mean you and I agree on everything, but that we are one body. We are connected to each other. We're built for community. That's the whole point of understanding who God is. He is community in Himself. He's three in one.
Exactly.
And to kind of match all of that together. So when we come together, we should be thinking of each other, serving each other, and looking around in ways that we can serve. And it's not a business, but I think of it sometimes in the business world, of the sense that if you work at a restaurant or work somewhere, and I remember we used to say when I worked in Andy Ann's, if you have time to lean, you have time to clean. And people over there were like, their job was done, and they're just standing around. Yep. We have enough pretzels for now. I'm the oven guy. I'm not doing anything. I'm just standing there looking because my job is fine.
Yep.
So the training even there was, we are all a team in this little store making pretzels. But if you have time to lean, you have time to clean. You're always looking to see what can we do to help our little team work out. And no, the church is not a business, but if you think of that, if I have time, I should come in looking around. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you're coming to the church for healing, so you don't have time to lean.
Right.
You're in that place where hopefully someone sees your need, and we're not putting up just those walls. But that's the idea. We come here, we want to find ways we can help. Now, this list has tons of ways and old school ways, but I think they match up. I mean, there's 75. You can Google this, ways to serve in my local church. Something along those lines, and you'll get like tons of lists. Some with 10, some with 30. This one was 75, so I was like, ooh, 75, I'll just print the big one. Why not? It really doesn't mean this one, like I said, is out of date, but it's very simple. Welcome people as they come in and help them find where they need to go. It's a very simple act. Every church I know would love to have people to just greeters, welcome team, ushers, depending on every church does a little different, but it's the same idea.
Right.
We were watching some training recently, and it said that, one, when people come to your church, within 30 seconds, they've already decided if they're returning. That's all.
Wow.
Within 30 seconds. And those 30 seconds usually occur before they even meet the first person. So you already have some barriers to deal with. But then they say what usually helps people stay is that they get 7 points of connection. So 7 points, and they don't have to be very long. Mm-hmm. That's why a lot of it is just like a welcome greeter person doesn't have to ask them a whole bunch of questions, get to know them deep. They just, we're so glad you're here today, and they go in, they see somebody else who just, oh, it's good to see you today. And if you're at a larger church, you may not know people, and they may have been there 10 years, you may have been there 10 years, and all of a sudden you see someone, you just, hey, it's good to see you today. You don't have to say to people, whoa, you're new today. I think that can be a little overwhelming to people. But
and off-putting sometimes.
Just welcome. Glad you're here. I'm glad you're with us. And so if they meet 7 people in a positive interaction, they say that often the likelihood of them returning jumps to something like 80%. 7 people, that's it. And it doesn't seem like difficult, but churches struggle to find people to be greeters, welcomers, because they think, I got to do this, and I got to do that, and I got to be so friendly, I got to be an extrovert. You don't have to be any of those. You could stand there and just say, I'm so glad you're here today.
Say the same thing to say every person.
It's good to see you today. Glad to hear today. Anything like that. And so some of these things on here, you think I have to have so much training or so much expertise, and you don't. Most people who either lead it or staff members would take you in a heartbeat and help you. Of course, they're going to help. They want to make sure it's within something you have strengths in.
Sure.
As well.
But probably everyone can stuff envelopes.
I'm sure they can. I know they can. That's true. I mean, here it says, volunteer in the church nursery. Of course, you got to be old enough, and now church nurseries will have, everyone has a background check on it, but you can say, hey, can I volunteer? Can I check it out? Can I come and help? Whether it's a church nursery or the youth group or children's ministry, there's always a need for that. Providing a ride for people who can't drive, that's still a need today. There are plenty of people, even in our church, that struggle seeing, and they still mobile, they could get out and they could use a ride sometimes. Mm-hmm. We have around us retirement communities where I'm sure if a van said, hey, we're going to take some people to church, they'd join. 4 or 5 people would come with you every Sunday. I think there's lots of ways to do that.
Well, and then there's the one of, maybe you can get a ride in a van to the grocery store or an appointment, but then you've got to wait for all the other people to be dropped off too, and that can be very
very time consuming. Where they come to church, you're there, you don't take them back. Yeah. There's that. I mean, some of these are interesting. Host a mom's night out with childcare. I think that's an interesting one. Where maybe that's okay. I love that idea. Or what has happened here is some people have they're volunteers. I have this idea of something in the community that I think would help our church or people, and we work through it and say, okay, and then let them run with the idea. So don't be afraid to talk to people about your ideas. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you're going to get a no, and a no might mean I don't have the time right now.
Yeah.
A no might mean, sometimes a no means I've said a no sometimes because we are doing so many things, whether you're going to spread my staff thin. So let's find a way to take that no and make it a yes, but let's push it down to this timeline. Where we can
incorporate it with this.
Put it in the space.
Yeah.
And so don't take a no as a bad thing. Take a no as from the perspective of them talking, and maybe it's wow, that's a great idea. I can't do that right now. well, when can we? How can we work on that? And as I've said to some people, it might take 6 months or a year, but then it starts getting into place, and you can think of that. You know, visiting people in a hospital, we have a great pastor of care who does that, but we also have a pastoral care team at our church. And there are officially, I think, 3, maybe 4 people that go on their own. You know, someone's in the hospital, pastor of care might send a message out, one of them will go. He goes, one of them goes. It's not always just the pastor of care. It's not always just me. Like, there are multiple people that go. You can do that, you know, and some churches would love to have that. And sometimes the smaller your church is, the better, the bigger that need is, because that church with a smaller staff, or sometimes no staff, and I've been there, the pastor is the only person that they call, and we'll go to the hospital, we'll go to visits, and then they want you to go to this meeting, then they want you to go to this meeting, and it runs them really thin. And if you're to say, Pastor, I know you visited so-and-so in the hospital, I will go next time. Or call me, see if I'm available. I would love to do that. And just give them that place.
Yeah, that's great.
You know, so there's lots of things on here that talk about those types of things you can do. You mentioned stuffing envelopes, and I thought at our church we have a ministry that meets a couple times a month, and they craft cards. They make blank cards and thank you cards and get well cards and just all
sympathy cards.
Cards, and then they just place them out in the church. People can just take them for free. We can send them to people, and so join that ministry. Make cards, or start one on your own. You like to make cards? Just start making them, and ask the church, can I just put them out for free, and people can take them. And it's a way to get people to do things. One is interesting. Number 15 on here says sing in worship band or play an instrument. And I love that one. And I find almost every single church is struggling to find music people.
Enough.
Yeah. And there's multiple reasons. One, there's just not as many musicians these days. It's not taught as much in schools, and you can kind of see that coming through the system now and how that is. And 2, sometimes at some churches that have great musicians, they have a great team. You look at the team and people think, oh, they would never want me to join them. I'm not good enough. Look, they've been together for so long. And I can almost guarantee you, that almost every one of those teams would love for new people to say, can I come hang out? Can I play a little bit on the side? And they'll let you play during practice and then get up there. Our team is the same way. I love our music team, our contemporary music team, and they are very good musicians. And they have a great rotation of musicians. And I know other people that say, well, they've actually said, I don't know. They've been around so long. I said, they are begging for people to come. They'll have people come on a Thursday and say, they'll have them playing that same Thursday night just because. Why not? That's how much they love just having other musicians with them. And I know people that have come and played with them and just enjoyed that and never came on they come on Sunday but never went up on front on Sunday because they're just enjoying that. And then eventually, then they slipped in and did something. But there was no big deal about do you join or not join. Just come and enjoy music or sing with us. And I think most people, most groups, most music leaders would love you to try and to be there. And so I think a lot of it is don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to help with these things. There's if you are a person that looks at around a room and you go, oh, that's crooked. Oh, that's wrong. I see this broken thing. It happens.
This just needs a little bit of paint.
This needs a little paint over here. There's a bump in the wall over here. How did this happen here? Well, you have people coming through your church all the time. You have youth kids running around the church all the time, doing what youth kids do. And I think when I think of youth kids breaking something, I go, that's awesome. I like it. I think it's great because they're here enjoying, they're having fun, and they're making connections. And I know the youth directors, translating that and moving that into a place of pushing them to understand who Christ is and into discipleship times. And they're just here. They're not afraid to play a game where they end up running around the building, and something falls. And that's okay. That's the joy. Having that many kids or having kids around and you're like, oh, the kids are making a mess. You should be excited about that. Because if they weren't, then you don't have kids.
It's not a museum.
It's not a museum. It's a building to be used. But that also means, on the other side, you must be a good steward of that building.
Right.
And if your church, isn't a church that has a facility director or somebody, then then a group of volunteers, and maybe you didn't know that. Can I just walk around? I'm free on Fridays, and I want to. I can paint, or I can think of things, or maybe they have a list. Usually, a building committee or stewardship or trustees. Oh, there's a list of things you can help with. You can join that committee. Our trustee committee would love for people to join.
Oh, they sure would.
You don't have to be, an accountant to join. You don't have to be a carpenter. You don't have to be a business person. You can just have a heart for taking care of things. And you join the committee. They would love that, because having that voice is different is important. But some people join it and they're like, oh yeah, I've done construction all my life, and they'll join the committee, or they'll just be there and say,
friend of the committee.
We call it a friend of. They don't have to be committed to anything, but they're like, oh, let me look at that list. I can help with some of these things. And that's the idea. Like you can do that. You walk around and you go, you know what, I could fix some of these paint spots. Then you talk to the person. And go and do that. And it actually serves the people that are helping, but it also serves anyone that comes in and they see a place taken care of.
Yes.
People care about this place as they walk through that. I mean, on the same vein, think of any event your church does. Big ones and little ones. You go to the event, enjoy the event. And maybe while you're there, you go, you know what? I can stay a little bit. And ask the person, say, hey, I guarantee you they're going to say yes. Can I help clean up? Tell me what I can do. We had the beginning of our year Jubilee this past weekend, and we had the whole fellowship hall set up with different things, big old chili cook-off, an apple pie bake-off, which, by the way, you won first place in the apple pie bake-off. So I want to throw that out there, a winner. But I recall at the end of the night, I was talking with someone, and we were kind of in conversation with a person that's been visiting our church a couple times, and we were very engrossed in conversation. And I just figure everyone's running around doing stuff, and at one point I looked up and like all the tables were cleared, all the covers are up, they're getting put away, and I'm like, they hadn't touched our table. We were sitting there. No one asked to bother us. But what I remember is, because I was part of the planning team, is we didn't have a list of people to help clean up. And so it was just, hey, who wants to help clean up? And they just started giving instructions, and people did it.
This needs to be done.
They were all serving in the church.
Yeah.
And it was a joy. As the pastor, I turned around and I was like, oh, wow. Like, I would have stayed with the team, or the small team would have been doing a lot of this. By the time I was done and I was starting to pack my stuff up, it was almost completely cleaned up.
Wow.
Which is, I think, is pretty cool. And I think so a lot of these things are just thinking through that stuff, One of the ones on here says teaching Sunday school.
Oh, yes.
Whether it's children or youth or adult, I think that's good. But if you go, I really don't like to teach, then don't. Sunday school.
Then don't. There's other things you can do.
I love doing little lessons with kids, but I'm really not good with adults. Well, then stick in that area and think through those things. So like I said, I think a lot of this is just thinking through it.
Yeah.
What can I do?
Having a heart to serve. Because if you have a heart to serve, then you sort of by default are looking for ways.
Yeah.
There's not 5 ways, and if you can't do one of those, then you're out of luck. There's a million of them.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, at least 75.
Well, at least 75. Well, I see one on here was interesting. I remember this at my last church, the church in Ankeny had just one of those signs out on the street, with the letters that you shift in and out of there.
Oh, yeah.
And you're always trying to put a nice saying, quippy saying on there on one side. And then, maybe something coming up on the other side. And I was doing that for a while. And I'm not the best person for that, because that one, you have to keep a track of all the ones you've done, and details, not my strong suit. And then also making sure it's centered, it's in this place. I just want to throw them all up there, be done, because I want to get back to some of the other things that I'm doing. And there was a guy in our church, he ended up being a deacon later, and he had just retired, and he was like, I could do that. And he ended up with a list of things. Can I put these up there? Okay, and different. And he would line it up. Well, there's so many characters you can put in each line. I'm like, I didn't even know how many you could do that. But it became something he did well, and just relieved of the duty. And so if you're at a church like that, you could do that. Here at our church, our facilities director does it, but he can tell you, because we were talking about the other day, we could put this up here. He goes, there's this many characters on each line. And I was like, I didn't know that. So we had to and he counts it out and does, and then he lays it on a table. All the things I should have learned to do, and I never did, But if you can do that,
sure,
come in and do that. Be that person.
It's a great service.
It's a great service.
You don't have to be an extrovert to do it
You
either.
don't. Like one here says restocking the pews with them, offering envelopes. Pews or chairs. Some of them, have some information. Just, hey, do you need my help? I can do that after service, and you're serving the church.
Yes.
And so there. I think there's something for all types of people, for sure. I like the last one. Sit near the front or back of the church to minister to those in need, someone to talk to. I like the sitting near the front of the church is interesting. When I first read that, because my mind jumps ahead, I was like, if you are a regular person, regularly attending or a member, moving towards the front of the church, filling in a little bit, allows for those that are a little tentative when they come or newer when they come, the space to be in the back. And believe it or not, it's okay. That's a good place for them. They feel comfortable. They want to slip in, and you can be in a different place. So, and then you can just know that you're serving that way. Their idea was where you're sitting in these areas, and I think as people are leaving or going places, you're just watching. Some people sit in the back of the church and then ends up, they'll say hi to somebody they haven't seen before. Then they end up talking because they're back there at the end. So there's different ways to look at that. I'm not going through this whole list, but there's lots and lots of ways to do that, and they're very creative ways to do that. And then I found a different list, which I thought was interesting. It's less about how you help in the church, and believe it or not, how do you get younger people to help in the church? I think every church would love this. I know ours would as well. Assisting other teachers. I found that interesting. Having younger people, if they're not having a meeting at the same time, to assist with the children's ministry. They might help with the first through third graders, and they're helping the teachers. So there's an adult teacher and there's a 15-year-old, 16-year-old assistant. We don't often think about what can the youth do in serving in the body, and I think they should be able to serve in the body.
It helps. It gives them a feeling of belonging.
Yeah.
That's what we want.
Yeah, and so the first two are similar to me. Similar, helping with younger children,
Yeah.
assisting other teachers. Sometimes
Sure.
I've seen an older student will watch some younger kids over here, and adults maybe they're outdoor. Hey, help them stay over here, or play this game with them over here, and they're helping, and they're part of that body. I know this summer we did something like that where the youth group in the morning helped with our Bible adventure camp.
That's right.
And I've always thought that was a very good
excellent.
thing. They felt included. They were a part of it. They weren't just like, hey, you're an extra
Right. They're
camp
useful.
kid. They're useful. They put energy into it. Sometimes you have to encourage them to put energy into it, but that's teenagers, and that's how that works. And so, it's just an idea that think of the younger people in your church, and I mean high schoolers, even junior hires, and think, how can you get them to volunteer? They can be a welcome person. They can hand out, welcoming stuff. They can be a part of things like that. This says pick from a list of volunteer opportunities. So maybe as a group of adults, you say, what's a list we can give to young people? Or hand out to the youth director and say, here's some great opportunities we would love for you to get involved in. One-time events or these things and be a part of it. Yeah.
Yep.
And so this is one I hadn't thought of. Becoming pen pals or some type of connection with widows and widowers in the church. People that don't have as much family, maybe not family around, so just maybe sending them cards. And I think young people can do that. To them, it might be in some ways a novelty to grab a card and to send a card and have that connection with them. With parental permission, they could have other connections with them as well. But just this idea that they can also serve others by being friendly, by being kind to them as well.
Sure.
And I think if you start then, it starts to remove that idea that there's separate churches. There's the adult church and then the other church, and then when the high schoolers get into college, it's not like youth group anymore. And so church isn't the same. They know what to do. Where you start involving them in the life of the church, I think it's important.
Very.
Number 5, leading worship in the church. That's something that we've considered here. Like, it's just more, it goes back to that other picture of the worship team is in a good place, and people are afraid that they can't join. Like even our worship team, if youth were to come to practice, join. Doesn't matter. You get up there and sing. We have it every other week. They can be there and be a part of it.
Yep.
And so, I've seen the youth kind of be there once in a while, and I've seen musicians be like, "Hey, sit down at the keyboard, sit down here." Like, doesn't matter. Ours are very good with that, but I think the notion is, even in our everywhere, it's just, oh, nobody can join that. Oh,
it's
young people. Oh, we can have a youth Sunday, and the youth can do all that on a Sunday. But why not? Why does it have to be a separate Sunday? Just have them be part of. If you have a rotation, we have a rotation. Have them join the rotation.
Yep.
I know we have one or two youth that are now joining joining the choir, and they actually come to rehearsal on a Wednesday night, and then they come and they do warm up and they do choir for the 10:45 service. Our choir is right at the front of the service because it's the traditional service. They do choir, and about half those choir members have already been at the 8:30 service, so they sing the song, they have a great time. And then they actually leave the service when the song is over, and we continue the service. So those youth, one or two of them in our church, no one said, "Oh, we need a youth choir." They said, "Just join the choir, just be a part of it." And I think that we forget that maybe in other churches as well. If you have kids with musical talent, just getting them involved. Maybe it's just having them do special music at first, sliding into singing as often as they can. I think that would be something to do. I think they had another one over here. Yeah. This is an interesting one. Think of having a youth or two create a technology class for the older people in the church.
Yeah.
I think that would be great. This is basically you're informing a younger generation's informing an older generation of ways to think of us, or also ways to keep connected with us. And they're serving them that way.
Absolutely.
I hadn't thought. I was like, oh, that's a really good one right there.
Yeah, because how many times IT people will tell you, "Oh, it's all intuitive. It's no problem. You can just do da da da."
Yeah, depends what generation you grew up in, right? Yeah, I think that's funny.
Not true at all. And how grateful. They want to stay in touch with their grandchildren, for instance, if they're living out of state, but they get so frustrated because they can't figure out how to get it to work.
Yeah, so maybe there might be, you can find some plans out there to help them out, but if you have a couple kids that are technologically savvy and could kind of go through that would be a great connection point, and they can do that.
Yeah.
The final one goes along with the other one here. It just says hosting a birthday card party or a party where they get together and make cards. And we have a card ministry, but that meets during the day. So how you could take that card ministry and blend it into something where the youth get together and do something. Maybe they do an evening project or something like that. We have
with holidays coming up for local assisted living buildings.
Having cards for that. We have a ministry that happens through our pastoral care team, and they make a lot of fruit baskets and things at Thanksgiving that they go out to a list of people that have been struggling or can't get out of the home, and they actually get together on a Friday night with the youth, and the pastoral care team provides all the stuff, and they're there, and they have pizza with them, and then they put all these baskets together, and it's mostly the youth because they have all the energy. It gets done really fast, but they love that they interact, and the youth are like seeing that this is helping and going out to these people, and it's all gets processed together that way. And that's the same type of idea. Let's take their energy. Yeah. Let's involve, show them what we do as pastoral care. There's these lists of people. There's this. We pray over them, and let's enjoy pizza with them. I mean, what youth group kid doesn't like pizza? Most of them do. And then let's put this all together. Join us in this. And they started doing that. I think only 2 years ago.
That's about right. Yeah.
And I'm not sure who liked it more, the pastoral care people or the teens. They just really, that's the idea. That's the connection. And so that's bringing service within the church. And I think that's important. We tend to think if we only think inside the church, it's bad. So we don't want to be only inside the church, but we do want to see that we can. When you are driving to church, I'm coming to worship God, coming to that point, but also I'm coming to serve. This group of people I serve with. Often we think of churches as what am I getting out of it? What am I getting out of it? Instead of what am I putting into it? Yeah. And it's a different mindset. And today it's different that way. So maybe you have other ideas that you can think of. You can put them in the comments. We'd love to hear what you think could be service within the church. This list had 75, but it was an older list because you said something about audio tapes. And so maybe that doesn't work anymore. But talking of technology class, it could be a youth showing an older generation that can't get out as much. Here, go here, and I'll set it up for you, and then you just can click here and watch a sermon every week. I actually did that with somebody recently who's in the hospital, and they said, I tried to, we can't figure it out. I said, can I look at your iPad? I said, and they actually had the YouTube app on their iPad, and I brought it up, and I brought up our channel, and they don't use that app for anything else. I said, so you just open this,
leave it there,
hit this app, and it'll come up, or you can always type our name in, but it'll come up, and it's right there. Whoa, that's going to be so helpful.
I know my kids, for my mom, made out a whole list of steps.
Yeah.
Because she wanted to be able to get onto the TV, but then she had to, how do you pick a channel and what's a good channel and all. So they just step by step set it up for her. It's like, oh,
makes a big difference.
It's great.
Yeah. So lots of ways to serve, which is an act of worship within the body. And next week we can talk about how, and you have to also balance that with outside the body, in the community, in the world. But I love to hear what creative ideas you've been involved in or that you have for serving out in the body as well. So find some ways to serve, get to your church, and just think that way. I'm here to serve, not what am I getting out of it. Between this week and next week, I hope you have a good one.
Take care.